I talk about life balance and long range. If you want something, there's going to be years where, yeah, you're probably going to be working a lot. You will have those times, and then you will have other times where you get to take a break.
Doing some research on your background beforehand, I was curious how you went from being a nuclear biological specialist in the Army
Good find.
to, there goes my phone, so the rest of this is off the cuff. No, but I was curious, how do you go from that to running all of these e-commerce platforms?
Well, we got to start back a little bit. So I'm just about to graduate from high school, and I want to go to college, and my parents just can't afford it. So what they said to me and my brothers was, you've got to join the Army Reserves, and they'll pay 75%. At the time, they were paying 75% of college plus the GI Bill. And that was just what me and two of my three brothers chose to do. And you have to pick a specialty. And that one was really in high demand at the time. They wanted a lot of these 54 Bravos, nuclear biochemical specialists. So what you do is you go into your basic training. Everybody does the same thing. If you join the military, whether you join reserves or active, you all go through basic training the same way. And then you go through what they call AIT, which is Advanced Individual Training. And that's when we all split off because you chose what your specialty would be. And I chose that 54 Bravo, the nuclear biochemical specialist. So really, that was just an avenue to get money so that I was able to go to college in the end. And actually, I tell people this all the time. Like, joining the military is just one of the best parts of my life, because it helps you learn how to be a team. It helps you learn how to make critical decisions. It helps you just mature, and essentially. I mean, it helps you grow up real quick when you got a M16 rifle and you better make sure you're doing the right thing with it. And you've got to, fall in line for combat, and you have to learn how to live in the woods for a while, all those types of things. But they're also very flexible. So, you have your training, and then you're able to go back to college and get it 75% paid for. Plus, you're getting paid a few $100 in the GI Bill. And then you go finish your training the next summer. So it was a real deal. I don't know if it's still like that now, but it was a really good deal for us who, can't afford to go to college and needed another option to be able to do that.
Okay, so you were in the Army for how many years then?
So I was in the reserves.
Reserves.
Yeah, that's okay. I was in the reserves. I signed up November 1991.
Okay.
And I actually, interestingly, received my honorable discharge papers on September 11th, 2001.
Oh my goodness.
So at the time, I was working with Mark Haysbrook, who you had on a couple episodes ago. Mark Haysbrook and I were working at giftcertificates.com.
Yeah.
And September 11th happens. And I was actually there in the morning, and we were all watching what was happening on the TV. Yeah, just one of the most memorable type. You're going to remember it for the rest of your life, right? And then we all probably left around 11 or something like that. I picked up the mail. I got my honorable discharge papers on that day, which I didn't know how meaningful that would be. But it honestly was the right thing. I'm glad because, I was a single parent during this time as well. I was a solo parent for the time, 2001. She was 5 years old.
Yeah, when people ask, what were you doing that day? You definitely have enough significant events to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember at school, they brought us all into a big auditorium room that we had, and George W. Bush is on the TV and going through that. Then, we called a half day at school that day. And now engaging with younger audiences or people that are coming out of college, it is the most jarring thing for me to engage with people that didn't experience 9/11 at all.
Yeah.
And Yeah, it certainly changed the world. And I feel like right now, in the last 4 or 5 years, the world and the internet has changed so much. I'm in media and I feel like I can barely keep up with it all.
Right.
2 days ago, TikTok's done. Just kidding. It's back at maybe 90 days from now. Who knows?
It could be done again. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is it the same with e-commerce the last 5 years? What's going on here? Because next thing I know, I order something on Amazon that I'm expecting 2 or 3 days. It's at my house in 4 hours.
Yeah.
Don't know how that happens so fast, but
Right.
I'm assuming supply chain logistics stuff's moving so fast. And I don't know if it's disruptive technology or what's happening on the back end, but in your world, have you seen kind of the same thing?
Yeah. I mean, I'm blown away because, I started in e-com in the late 90s.
Yeah.
So I'm blown away by the difference of what it was then, which was just sort of, okay, let's get some products on the website and see if people will buy them on the website. And, think about shipping and speed of shipping and this and that.
Yeah.
Those were just not conversations. It was, okay, I hope people buy this stuff. And now how do we communicate with them? They're in our list. What is our marketing plan? And, how do we do that? So it's a lot of basics, a lot of foundational stuff that was built. And, since I was in e-commerce from that time frame, really all the way through now, I love the progression, the things that we're seeing, the speed. To me, the democratization, like Shopify is a big player in e-commerce now. I was just talking to Mark about this. Shopify has created a whole new entrepreneur, in my opinion. And they really did say, they said, our plan is to democratize. And a lot of us have wanted to do that because Amazon has just taken up such a big piece of the pie, right? And
Yeah.
so how do you just fragment this? How do you get more innovation? How do you give others a chance to, operate in this world that Amazon has just sort of taken a lot of at this point in time? And Shopify said, well, what if I created a platform and it's going to take you about 5 minutes to put up a website and it's going to be a really good website for your product. You just have to come up with the product. And that's what retail really always was, is the differentiator was how good is your product? And that's where you have to play. You got to play and you got to have a great product for the customer.
Yeah.
And then it started getting to experience, and now we've normalized that experience. And Shopify came in at exactly the right time and said, the experience is the same. I mean, walk into any grocery store in America, the grocery stores are the same. It's about the product. They want to do the same thing with e-commerce. Really, the experiences are, for the most part, the same. Now we're back to a level playing field. Now you got to make an awesome product and learn how to sell that product in the world of e-commerce. And I'm going to give you the easiest platform in the world to do it. And it's also going to be cheap, by the way. So they lowered the barriers that existed and have helped democratize this whole e-commerce thing. And one of the things I've done in my career is I got really lucky. I got to work with Mark and others on e-commerce really early on and get a foundation. Plus I was in marketing prior to that. And then work with Mark at Hayneedle, and just continue to build that foundation of what e-commerce was. And then I was able to keep going and learn e-commerce to a point where now I can work with these e-commerce professionals that are usually on Shopify and help them scale and really grow their business.
For people who have a product to sell, is the difference between something like Etsy and Shopify, if you're more boutique, you've got some sort of artisan good, right? Maybe some sort of mittens, limited quantity. Etsy's the place to go.
Yeah.
If you've got something patented that you're wanting to sell thousands of, it's Shopify?
It probably is a little bit more nuanced than that, but that is about right. So, if you really just want to sell a product, you don't want to run a business in the end. You want to sell a product, get on something like Etsy or Amazon, because then they run the business part. They run the site experience. They help drive the marketing to their website. And now you can just focus on your product in the end. If you're going to go to Shopify, that's where it's like, hey, I've got a mittens idea and I've got this idea, and it all culminates to this type of brand. And I want to create the differentiation here. And now I want to go from being a product to a business with maybe several products. But by the way, several businesses started out with one product, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Spanx is a great example of that. So if you have a long range vision of, I see this as a business more than just a product, then usually, your first stop is going to be Shopify.
Is there an era of e-commerce that you look back on as just, this is the most sweet, the golden era, the one you love the most? Because when I made YouTube videos back in 2009, 2010, it was just crappy quality. And I'd throw it up, at least 10,000 views. And you're just like, okay, that's great. I guess that's what you get. Just throw something into the world and people will watch it. Now, if we onboard a client and their first video gets 10,000 views, our minds are blown. Like the amount of stuff that's thrown into the ethos on the internet. And looking back, we didn't know. You didn't have any sort of marketing plan. Just throw it up. And do you feel the same way about a specific point in time within e-commerce?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it is really heavily saturated now. So you better have something pretty highly differentiated and know how to market it. But back when we did gift certificates in Hayneedle, that was the day. The environment was this. Big box retailers weren't interested. They're like, this is a fad for the most part. You couldn't find them on, Google had just come around in, I don't know, 2001 or 2002. Mm-hmm. And you do some searches, you're not finding the big box retailers because they don't want to play in this area. So that was a really sweet time for Hayneedle. We had a lot of opportunity to grow. There was very few players, very little competition. And we had already had several years of experience. And we were still learning. I mean, in the end, Mark and I could say we're learning on the fly. I mean, kind of changing the engine while the plane's in flight a lot, as you go along. But if you get smart and you learn, and by the way, we were in Hayneedle and Wayfair was running in the same course with the same strategy. Wow. And we were watching each other go along. And it was a sweet time because there's just so few competition. But I would say another sweet time is when I joined Office Depot and Sports Authority and ran their e-commerce. This is when Big Box started to play. And yes, Amazon was around and Walmart was around, but there was still a lot of opportunity. I mean, some of the growth there that I experienced and helped drive with an awesome team is probably not quite the growth you're going to get today in those environments as well. But, it's really been pretty sweet up until, to your point, probably the last few years. It's just so heavily saturated. It has leveled everybody up. It has caused for us to, get smarter, get more innovative, find more scale, use AI, use other technologies to find that little open spot that's going to help you open up your opportunity.
Do you have any sort of idea or maybe thoughts around what the future of e-commerce may look like 5 years from now? Because I had a meeting yesterday or 2 days ago. I'd mentioned AI and they said, what is that? I'm like, please, you find out, tell me. Because I don't think there's a simple way to answer that question. And is it generative or is it this or this? And is it even artificial intelligence at all? And so Google is implementing new systems that say, we can write your email for you.
Right.
Just give us the prompt and we'll do it all.
Right.
And I'm starting to wonder, is that going to be Amazon a few years from now? I mean, I know they want to set up already their subscription models for pills and other things to say, hey, you could have this already delivered and have it at your door. But how predictive are we going to try to get with understanding buying patterns and putting products in their faces and saying, hey, maybe if you subscribe to this, we're just going to start sending you things once a month that, I mean, I know there's services already like that. You get a box of things and you don't know what's in it, but people get excited because they subscribe to this, and kind of blows my mind, but that's a service that people have. And
Yeah.
I don't know, what are some of these new systems that you think may be coming around within the next few years in e-commerce?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I wish I knew, but I kind of think we're headed down. Let's say you and I like the same abc.com. Like you're going to have a literally front to back different experience on abc.com than I am. Right now, we would both of our experiences would be about 85 to 90% the same on abc.com. But in the future, it's got to get more personalized. It's got to get more predictive. Reading everything you've done, whether it's on, it's going to know more than what you've done on the web. It's going to know, all kinds of things, right? Maybe it knows what restaurants you went to, what you did yesterday, whatever it is. I mean, you always hope the goal is to do the right thing for the customer. So, we'll have to see what path we're going down here, because I guess the idea was, how do you make it such a rich experience that it is more valuable for you, your experience, and then for me, my experience? And it's possible with AI. You're now getting to a real point. We talked about personalization for probably 20 years now.
Yeah.
But personalization is still, in reality, so far behind because we all experience the exact same thing. So can AI kind of help us experience this whole world the way that it would be best for each of us to experience this whole world? And that's just a guess. I mean, I don't know in the end. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, I haven't had a single guest yet say with confidence, this is what's coming. And I'm kind of hoping
the crystal ball is a little hard. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm kind of hoping one day we'll have that one really confident individual that, I mean, it doesn't matter. I remember once I had a discussion with somebody in 2007, and there was a new platform that they were so confident was going to replace Google. And that didn't come to be. But to that point, there is so, if you were to say to me, some platform called OpenAI is going to outperform Google's Gemini for generative AI tools, say you're nuts. And here we are now. I think ChatGPT's the 4th most popular app in the world, maybe 6th, something there. It's there. It's on the market. It was first, and now it's...
Well, and sometimes the door swings backwards, right? And the younger generations are fairly against Amazon right now. Yeah. They really like their in-store shopping. The door swings backwards sometimes when there's a little bit, too much. There's a lot of red ocean going on in the e-commerce areas. Just a lot of sharks in the ocean. Yeah. And the store experience, if people can do it right, if there's some stores that do it really well, and by well, I think it doesn't take a lot. It just takes really awesome customer service with some expertise where you really feel like you've got that thing again from the stores that's hard to ever get from e-commerce. It's that social aspect. It's that let me, help you try things on, or let me help you with, what you need exactly. We could still be balancing this AI component with, let's humanize this experience again, because e-commerce has dehumanized a lot, and there's going to be a negative impact to that.
Yeah, and it's so easy to really hurt that customer loyalty. I swore by Amazon, like a lot of millennials do and did, and for years, and their customer service always seemed top notch. And in the last few years, it's made it very difficult to return things, at least for free. You got to go to a UPS, or not UPS, a Kohl's, or drop it all off at a Whole Foods. And what really got me was one story where they asked, would you like to cut down on boxes? And if we ship multiple items to you, and it'll be a day or two later, but it's eco-friendly. And I figure, hey, why the heck not? But then for whatever reason, I had to return both items. And so I go to you get my barcode from Amazon. I go to UPS and they say, it's great. You have one box here though. I'm like, well, yeah, I cut down on boxes. They said, doesn't matter. You have to buy a box. And so,
geez.
yeah, I've got screaming kids with me. I'm calling Amazon and more than anything, I'm talking to some customer service person that I knew at the time just did not care, was just trying to hurry up and say, well, I'm sorry, sir, you just need to have to buy a box. And I'm like, well, this is your process. I was trying to do you a solid. I don't know why, but and here I am. I'm having to pay for this. And I said, oh, sorry, sir. I guess we can give you a credit on the back end, but now you know that going forward. I'm like, okay. And it just got me to stop and think, where am I really putting my dollars? Should I be spending so much on Amazon? So deleted the app and thought, okay, where else can I start buying things from? And it's not as convenient.
Yeah.
But, I know there are other players out there that will value my money. And, there's plenty of places out there like Chick-fil-A. They've just nailed process.
Yeah.
And making sure that whether people love them or hate them, they do a really great job, whether it's the amount of people they staff, the lines, everything else. So I don't know, are there e-commerce players out there right now that exude that level of customer service and make sure the customer knows how valued they are?
Well, I think there's not enough players, and that's where the differentiation lies. It's a really good opportunity to say, okay, I've got a great product, but how do I generate the best customer service for the customers that I'm going after right now? Because I do think that is constantly a missing piece of the strategy for many companies. They still think that you're the buyer and they're the seller, and so you have to inconvenience yourself a little bit to come to me as the seller and get what I've made for you, instead of saying, okay, you're essentially the person I've got to satisfy. And without, and obviously we got to pay attention to keeping a profitable business around. That's another component of this. How do I maintain profitability and high levels of customer service? Many of the companies I consult for, the last thing they're going to look at is customer satisfaction scores.
Really?
And I try to, and say, okay, we've got to put your customer satisfaction score first, and then your financials will probably really communicate the same thing that your customer service score is communicating. You might be great, you might be good, you might be bad. Either way, they're going to line up. They're going to match up in most cases.
So with your consulting business, well, first off, tell me what is Uprisers? What is it you do?
Yeah.
How do you develop leaders? And then I've got a few follow-up questions around that whole customer satisfaction.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do a couple things. So at Uprisers, I would say what we're doing is we're focused on emerging leaders and emerging businesses. And we're trying to help them, those emerging leaders and emerging businesses that really want to grow. They have a big desire to say, I want to get bigger. So either leaders, they're in the middle, they're senior manager, they're a director, something like that. And they're like, you know what? I want to be a CEO one day. That's my dream. Right now, I want to get to the VP level. I want to get to the C-suite, but I want to get to CEO. So how do I do that? Because it's a black box. It's really hard to figure that out. And then on the emerging businesses side, they've got a pretty viable business right now. They've proven demand on some level. So they have a product that's producing let's say somewhere 5 to 25 million is some of our sweet spot of our businesses. So there has been proof that the products and the brand are working. But getting you to 5 or 25 million, you can brute force that stuff. And now you can't brute force yourself after 25 million. It's just not possible. You really have to change the way you think. The processes, the people you hire, that's a big one. How you pay attention to the financials and what they tell you. How you're driving efficiencies in the business. How you go after more revenue. How you go after more revenue per customer. all those things becomes meaningfully different to get to the next level. So I'd say we take these emerging businesses and these emerging leaders, and Mark and I have both been there, and we say, okay, this is how you're going to get to that next level. Yeah.
It seems to me, here's my take here. I want to know if you agree or disagree with it. So many business executives I know that are hyper focused on growth. The idea is around invest in marketing and put a lot more butts in the business development side of the business. And that's where it is. And more often than not, there isn't as much of that self-reflection and looking at operations. Because I'm of the mindset, if you have an awesome back of the house, everything else looks great. It's kind of that old adage where if I go to a restaurant and I see your bathrooms are trash, what's your kitchen look like?
Right.
And so, it's the whole thing. But I do see executives that they're saying, well, we're just not doing enough webinars. If we had a podcast, and we have a podcast production business, so that happens. People come in and they say, what's holding me back right now from not getting to whatever these goals are for our business? It's just we're not doing enough marketing. And after a few conversations, we say, well, we're not sure if the podcast is actually what would really help. Maybe it's this. But I don't know. Maybe you disagree. Maybe folks have operations down and it is marketing that people need to be investing more. But what do you think?
No, I'm of the same mindset as you. You have to have a highly efficient running operation on the backside. You can brute force on the sales and marketing side. But at some point, it's going to get real inefficient, and it's going to show up in your financials if you just keep applying more marketing and sales over and over. And then you've got, like you said, a bad kitchen. I've had this many times. Sports Authority. I joined Sports Authority in 2013. It is out of business now, but we had a really successful run for a couple years. So I took sportsauthority.com and took it from a $50 million business to a $250 million business. Oh. But a lot of the things we did was to work on the back end of the operation. Partly because, first of all, you can't fulfill on a $50 to $250 million business means a lot of the things in the warehouse have to be much more efficient, right? Fulfillment gets higher. You have to have more inventory. You can't drive more sales without more inventory. That inventory has to be pretty well organized in a warehouse. I've seen plenty of warehouses where they are, just like your kitchen example, plenty of warehouses that are pretty junky. It's going to cause for you to not be able to grow your business in the end. And for the companies I work with, it's a lot of hard goods. So I have to give you those examples. I see a lot of, right now, a lot of marketing and sales bringing traffic to the website. And then it falls flat somewhere down the line. The conversions aren't enough. The average order value is not enough. And some of that is operations too. It's kind of looking at the business and saying, okay, if you keep paying for this traffic to come down the line and it can't convert, you can't drive more revenue, then you have an operational issue for sure. And we have to slow down the sales and marketing and fix the operational issue. And I think the most wonderful thing of e-commerce that ever happened, I'll just speak to the retail area, is it gave it data. And to this day, Amazon is the leader in using its data to improve everything else going on. But other retailers struggle with that. So when I was at Sports Authority, I just preached that nonstop. Because when you didn't have e-commerce and all you had were the stores, you had very little data. You didn't know how much traffic was coming into your stores. You didn't know what they looked at and wanted but didn't buy. You didn't know a ton of things in the end. And so e-commerce, and you didn't even know what the world was demanding. You go to Google and look at the volume of searches and figure out where the volume of searches are. That is some pretty rich data. You can go into your database, and not just look at what people bought, but you can look at what they browsed and what they didn't buy. Because if they took the time to browse, there's a question on why they didn't buy it, and there's an opportunity there. And I just think e-commerce has really made data a big player for retail that can help you get smarter about how you improve the operations of your business, for sure.
What were products that you viewed and didn't buy? Was it the original retargeting ad? Because I
Yeah.
because all of a sudden carousels
the
and
ugly ad.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere. And I remember that, whatever it was, 2010. I'm like, how does it know I looked at that one time? And the next thing you know, incognito mode jumped out of nowhere. And anyway, people are perusing the internet, but if they don't want to hit those ads again, then they'll go into incognito. But even that, I think Google got in trouble this last year for still selling out information that was in an incognito. So you look at something on the internet, someone somewhere is going to try to sell it back to you down the road.
Or anywhere. I mean, you've got your phone on you at all times. That's essentially your tracking device.
Yeah.
You more than you have a Google product on there, or your phone is a Google product.
Yep.
You more than likely have Facebook on there, Instagram, something.
Yep.
Those things are all tracking devices. And it knows where you're at all times.
At all times.
Yeah.
I was saying over the phone, I was talking about the business, and someone said, have you ever thought what would happen if it all goes under? I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. I would just go work at McDonald's. I said that, and the next day, I'm still getting them ads to apply to McDonald's. So I tell Pete all the time, hey, it looks tempting. I could just sell, this whole thing would be done. It's yours. I'm going to go get a job at McDonald's now. I know they're listening, so I'm probably going to get even more of those because my phone is on me. But how do you take speaking of the leaders who, we have all this data now, and maybe they didn't care about operations, or there's something, whether it was the warehouse, it doesn't matter. Something is inefficient and it's creating a crappy customer experience, but they don't prioritize customer experience.
Yeah.
How do you take someone from point A to point B and get them to get that to resonate?
Yeah. And it's not that they don't care, but they don't know that they should care. There's kind of a difference. So most of the entrepreneurs I work with, and they don't know they should care about their finances either. They're actually probably looking at their bank account most to make sure they have money in their bank account. And then maybe some reporting here and there that's been passed to them. And they're clueless on how to grow and afraid of investing in their business, essentially. But honestly, it's sort of a shoulder to shoulder shadowing with them and showing them the value of things like their profit and loss statement, like customer satisfaction. Like, what if we can, and showing them some macro data sometimes helps a lot with some of it depends on the entrepreneur. I got to figure out what they listen to, essentially. What makes them pipe up and go, oh, that's interesting. But if I got an entrepreneur that's all about the macro, the data that's out there, I'll pull data and say, look at these case studies. When they improved their customer service, they also improved the lifetime value of their consumers, which translates into really efficient revenue growth, essentially. And, once I can kind of tie that back to the revenue, they're all about it. So if you can take a metric and really help them see how it ties back to revenue, they're good to go, essentially. And then we kind of work through the operations. Like, I've got a client where we're working on getting her transferred to Zendesk. And then, I remind her every week we've got to get that customer satisfaction survey out that Zendesk already has. It's already implemented in there. And then her and I need to review those scores every month so we can talk about how to improve those scores. And, and when they hire us, they want our help. So they've already opened the window saying, tell me what I need to be doing and tell me what I need to be looking at to grow my business. So, we take that opening, we say, you need to be looking at this. And then from there, that might last a good 6 months to a year. And through that process, we're proving like, we asked you to look at customer experience. You looked at it. we found that the tactics where we need to improve. So we found the things that people were not happy with. And here's how it's tying back to revenue, just so that they can see like, oh, okay, they told me to do this. It did actually have an ROI. And it just proof points for them to go, okay, these guys are helping me in the right, giving me the right answers to help me grow my business.
Have you ever had to provide any support maybe around talent management, employee retention, or anything there? Because something I do hear with a lot of clients, whether they're traditionalist or baby boomer, is it was ultra competitive and I had to put up with A, B, C just to get a job, period, much less to move up and succeed, whatever else.
Yep.
Whereas Gen Z, millennial, they almost make these business owners feel at borderline like hostage, where they could leave at any point because they grew up learning how to be influencers and how to start their own business and do their own thing. And that's me right now. I worked for a large company, ended up doing my own thing after a while.
Yeah.
And that's the reality. It's really competitive. You said it. We think, oh, everything's moving online. And then all of a sudden, young people are going back to brick and mortar stores. Mm-hmm. So what is happening here?
Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself providing that kind of coaching on how to reshape thinking around attracting and keeping top talent?
It's such an important part. So I saw this, what do you call it? It's kind of the path from the inside to the outside. Let's call it that. It starts with great leaders who can then empower and make for great, happy and great employees, who then empower and make for happy and great customers, who then translate their happiness into revenue. And it really struck me because I was a leader, I was in the executive world. And I've grown up a little because of actually my career growing up in e-com. And it's a bit wild, wild west. There's a bit of a different flavor of people in the e-com area. We're all collaborating. We need everyone's voice in this conversation to grow these things that we don't know. They're just we're clueless on exactly what to do. So we're trying to figure it out. It's very much a team environment. It's very much cross-functional. It's different from the way like boomers and I'm a Gen Xer. We grew up. We grew up differently, and that's why work is different. So for us, we grew up like parents got to talk. We didn't get to talk. No voice in the household. And I think it's important for Gen Zs and millennials to understand that. We spent 18 years you don't
silent.
You don't get a voice.
Yeah.
And you're told what to do, sometimes in a little bit of an angry manner, right? And you just do it. No questioning. And you're
yes,
not,
ma'am. Yes, sir.
You're also not asked any questions. Like you're not asked, what would you like to do? Like that stuff didn't exist. So, millennials and Gen Zs have these voices because the way they grew up was they were asked, would you like to do this or this? Or what would you, they were parented differently. And I appreciate that. And I have always really run on the inside of the corporations before my business. I was on the inside. And because I'm running e-com and digital, I have a lot of young folks. So I had a lot of millennials, and I learned to appreciate that over the course of time. Like I had to make sure that it wasn't a tops down direction. It was let's all get in a room and figure this out together. Let's all understand what the big result is, but can you guys help me get there? And I learned how to be an awesome leader to the millennial, really it was mostly millennials. Gen Zs were too young. So, I understand why boomers, I think it's important. I understand why boomers and Gen Xers are the way they are. And so when it goes to talent development, that's the first thing you have to understand, right? Is this thing that's deep inside of you that, what your expectation of the world really is. And so we've got a lot of entrepreneurs that are really millennials as well. I mean, they're millennials driving Gen Zs at this point in time. So it, to some degree, works quite well because they're all working with this collaborative attitude and these voices. I think the value Gen X and boomers can give is we had a lot of structure, and I think we are more structured in general. And so what I do is I do help put structure and financial governance in place for a lot of the individuals, because that's what they need. That's where the gap lies, essentially, for these individuals. Great ideas, want to move forward. I think there's a belief that millennials and Gen Zs don't work as hard, but I don't personally feel that that's true, but I hear it a lot from especially my peers. So focusing on results, making sure people are really satisfied with the work they're doing, and always asking them, is there other work that you'd like to do that would make you feel more satisfied or happier? What's your goals? Like, what do you want to do? How can I help you get there, kind of thing?
Yeah, I remember starting this business, and early on, I mean, I grew up military household, whole families from the south of Texas, and just years of military. And yeah, you responded, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. But being a millennial, I was always asked, how do you feel about that at the end? And I knew a minute or 2 minute window to get out what I thought. That was it. And yeah, people entering the workforce now, someone was a week or two in, and this blew me away. I just had to, I don't even remember what I said in the moment. We had a meeting, and someone pulled me aside and said, so what are you doing to manage my stress? I gave some political answer. I said, well, if you're doing this and this and this, make sure you do these tasks, do them well. If you're finding it causes stress and we need to reallocate resources, let me know, but blah, 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 blah. I walk away, and I'm just thinking to myself, I just got asked that. I can't even imagine. And I'm feeling frustrated in that moment. I'm only however many years older than Gen Z entering the workforce, and thinking of previous bosses, if I had said that too, what the response would have been, and making phone calls. And someone said to me, but is there, chew on it, maybe spit out what isn't true, but what can you swallow that's true in that? Are you thinking about employee stress levels as you're putting on work in this? And yeah, at the time, no, especially being brand new to business, didn't really see that, everyone was kind of unintentionally a player on a chessboard.
Yeah.
To help achieve results.
Yeah.
And I had to dial it back and say, okay, maybe there's ways this employee could have reworded that. But to the same point, there's things I need to be doing to make sure that people do achieve. I don't believe in a work-life balance. I just believe a life balance.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah. And so what am I doing to make sure that they're getting that fulfillment?
Yeah.
And so I needed that advice from someone, and this person talks to a variety of business owners, I'm sure says the same thing time and time again. Do you feel like, is there a piece of advice or some sort of coaching that it's kind of like a record on repeat you find you're telling business owners time and time again?
Well, for business owners, I think time and time again, they've got to be driven by the data. Many of them are driven by feelings or just, I don't know, things they liked on Instagram, whatever.
Interesting.
It's so they're not driven by the data that exists right in front of them. And I do think that is a really big gap. It's across the board for me. Wow. Not driven by the data.
Wow.
Yeah. And but the great thing is, and maybe I'm just lucky, but I've worked in a lot of environments. Every entrepreneur I've worked with, when I say you've got to get driven by the data, and let's talk about what that data is, and then let's put that data together, and then let's talk about it every week, they're all in. They're like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I'm often not driven by the data. Mm-hmm. I'm not looking at my product sales. I'm not looking at my customer lifetime value. I am not looking at the profitability of my business.
Yeah.
And it's so common for the emerging leaders when I do individual coaching. Mm-hmm. I think time and time again, life balance is brought up a lot. And I agree with you. It's life balance. It's like life doesn't work and is on this level and life is on this level. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But I talk about life balance in long range. I said, you know what? There's if you want something, there's going to be years where, or I don't know, months where, yeah, you're probably going to be working a lot. I get working smarter, but there's also going to be times where you're going to work a lot. Depends on what you want in life.
Yeah.
So you will have those times, and then you will have other times where you get to take a break. Like, for example, I worked honestly nonstop, probably from the time I had my daughter around 96 to 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
It was a really heavy time. This was a 20-year time. It has paid off in dividends. I make more now and I work less.
Yeah.
I got to that point. So I think life balance, people look at it like every single week I need to have this and this and this. And if that's what you want, go for it. But realize that if you got to first understand what you want long term and what it takes to get there, and are you willing to do it, essentially? Because business owners, you work really hard on the front end. That's a reality.
Unless you're a millennial or Gen Z, we all only work 4 hours a week. That's what they tell us. I think I'm the outlier there that somehow missed the boat. No, I hear you. And I mean, also, that can't be true. With something you were saying earlier about business owners being motivated by Instagram over data. Can't be true of the executives you work with. Not folks in the folks in the C-suite, same thing. They see a trend online.
It depends. Well, C-suite is when you're talking about usually a larger company, right?
Mm-hmm,
but
right.
if you're talking about like some of these first-time entrepreneurs, and they've got a business, like I said, between 5 and 25.
Yeah, they're in that.
They don't know. They're not. They're looking at their bank account to make sure they have some money in there.
Okay.
But beyond that, no, they're not looking at the data and saying, the data tells me A, B, C, D. So now I've got to work on A, B, C, D.
Yep. Kind
of thing. C-suite, my opinion, C-suite in larger companies looks at too much data and takes very little action from it.
Interesting.
They love to sit in a room for hours. Some people aren't going to love me with this comment, but whatever. They love to sit in a room for hours and look at all kinds of data. In those companies, my biggest beef is don't pull an ounce of data until you understand what actions you want to take from it. So there's too much data out there, and they have no idea what action to take from it. So it goes back to having a missing strategy. If your strategy is something like, or one of your strategies is something like, I need to grow the overall lifetime value of a consumer. I've spent all my time on customer acquisition. Now I need to turn around and work on customer retention and lifetime value. Then you back up and you talk about the data you need to drive the right tactics to drive that lifetime value. And then that's the data you look at. But yeah, we're either on one end of the spectrum, we look at too much data and don't make enough actions come from that data, or we look at no data and we're taking action all the time, but it's not necessarily driven by the data.
Yeah, we tell that to folks all the time. With Podpony, we say we're a lead gen company that just happens to make podcasts. And I remember I got my master's at Colorado State, and my marketing instructor, she had said that a great marketer doesn't make flyers. A great marketer can take a subset of data and help other people within the business make informed decisions that enhance the business development efforts.
Yep.
That's what a marketer should do.
That's right.
And so I spent a lot of time within the data. And so here we create assets, but really we take that data to say, what does this actually mean? What's significant? And what do we do going forward?
Right.
And it helps to help their overall mission. But going to your mission, our producer Pete's giving me the wrap it up sign. So I got to end this thing.
Okay, let's wrap it up.
Before we do, the question we ask everyone who comes on the show, if your life was made up into a cassette, and for all the Gen Z and millennials who don't know what that is, well, go look it up. It's on some e-commerce platform like eBay, where you can go buy one. If your life was made up into a cassette and you had a variety of songs on there that each one made up an area of your life, one facet of your life, what song would you hope would best define your career, all the places you live, the things you've done, that best exudes your work?
Oh my gosh. I'm going to pick this one because, it is a little bit about my career.
Yeah.
And I would say Prince, Let's Go Crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because, starting in e-commerce when no one knew what the heck it was, and it was Wild Wild West for years, and just hair on fire and things like that. Yeah, it's a little bit of Let's Go Crazy.
Very cool.
Yeah. And sometimes I can take some pretty big risks and make sure they pay off. So
coming on this podcast,
this is a big risk.
Yeah, cool. I hope our careers don't go up in flames. Mine already is. So
I love
hopefully,
it.
No. Jennifer, this has been an awesome episode of the Biz Tape. Thank you for coming on and adding to the tracks here. For the listener who pulled up a chair and heard our conversation today that wants to follow you, learn more about your mission, maybe they want some coaching themselves.
Yeah.
Where can they follow you?
Yep. You can go to uprisers.com, uprisors.com, or you can email me directly at jennifer@uprisers.com, or you can find me, Jennifer DiMotta, at LinkedIn, whatever you'd like. I am there. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Jennifer, thank you.
Thank you.
And hey, thank you, listener, for pulling up that chair. You know what to do. There's all bells, icons, subscribe, like all those things. Just do them. And please be sure to follow the show. I don't know who we're going to talk to next week. I know it's going to be good, so you're not going to miss it. So yeah, do all the things to subscribe and follow us, and we'll see you next time.